Conservative Cat, and I'm on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. I'm also live on YouTube and Rumble. It's a Monday morning, 6:05 a.m. We've got so much to get to. Find us on Facebook. Find Cities 92.9 on Facebook. Just shared the top news of the morning. Everybody's talking about it. A candidate filing a complaint, and it's with the Illinois State Board of Elections. He's saying that the Illinois county officials violated campaign finance law. So this former county board candidate, Chad Burke, who's a friend of the program, right? He actually filed a complaint with the Illinois State Board of Elections alleging that McLean County officials violated the Campaign Disclosure Act. So if you haven't been following the story, it all kind of started with an email that was sent out to multiple county board members, the county clerk, and in the email, county board chair, the now chair, she was then vice chair. In the email, the actions described in the email, she was the then vice chair, but she is now the county board chair, Elizabeth Johnston, and county administrator. They were named, and they were accused by a former attorney who worked in the state's attorney's office, Trevor Sierra, of soliciting and collecting funds. He's accusing them of soliciting and collecting funds for a political action committee established in support of a referendum eliminating the county auditor position. So a bit of the email, it says, on Thursday, September 19th, Ms. Taylor stated that fundraising efforts were not satisfactory. She asked me to call State's Attorney Erica Reynolds to inquire whether Circuit Judge Don Knapp or other allies would be willing to contribute to the PAC. So if anything in this is true, what's going on here is Ms. Taylor is being accused of, possibly alleging or possibly getting this guy, Trevor Sierra, to campaign on behalf of this PAC, which is a big no-no on government property. Can't do that. It's against the law. It's campaign finance law. Ms. Taylor explicitly stated, and this is what it says in the email, if asked about this conversation, I will lie. So Chad Burke has now, who ran against Johnston in McLean County District 5, for County Board in District 5, along with Randy Knapp. Randy Knapp and Chad Burke lost, and the two Democrats got it there in the District 5. But he ran against Johnston in this year's election for county board, and he was defeated. And he said, without an investigation, I can't deny, I'm not saying she did this, but I can't deny that Johnston could have used the collected funds in her own race against me. Right? That's what Chad Burke is saying. He's saying my family worked hard. I know Randy worked hard. And we don't know if these funds kind of intermingled. If Johnston was going around collecting funds at the county board administrator's office, he says, I can't find a PAC. I can't find where the money actually went. Now, I do know that Democrats typically, they use this loophole kind of in the law where you don't have to file right away or register a PAC right away. There's a filing deadline. And you can kind of go up to turn it in at the very last minute, and we won't know until mid-January about all of the PACs. So they could have waited until last minute to register the PAC. However, Chad says, look, I worked with the Illinois State Board of Elections. We can't find an EIN number, an employer identification number. We can't find anything that suggests that there was actually money funneled into a PAC established for the eliminating the county auditor. As of right now, that could change mid-January. Like I said, they tend to do that. Of course, it's designed that way, or they utilize the loophole, do it at the very end, so that way people don't know who was in charge of this PAC. They don't want people to know that their name was involved in this PAC. There's going to be treasurers of the PAC. There's supposed to be people who put their name behind this PAC, and it should be open to the public. But by then, in January, the election is over, and if you kind of push it up to the final deadline here, people won't know that you were a part of the PAC. Okay, so it's like political games, right, where you can kind of file at the last second when the buzzer goes off, and people won't know that you were a part of the pack until mid-January. So find us on Facebook, find that article. You can read more about it. We do have to get to a lot this morning, so I'm going to dive right in. We're going to talk first about the LPGA. This is the Ladies Golf Association, right? They're saying that they're banning men now. Men who say that they're women from competition. Okay, so men can't compete against women. Now, hold your horses before you start to celebrate, okay? It's actually not as great as I had originally thought when I read the headline. I was like, oh, that's great. We're banning men from women's sports, not allowing them to compete because they have a biological advantage. This is great news. It's actually not. The LPGA kind of is playing both sides here, and they're kind of being weak about this gender eligibility requirement. We're going to get to it. Plus, migrants in Maine. This is an interesting article or an interesting video. They videotaped migrants in this apartment complex. Now, this is an apartment complex, luxury apartment complex, $2,000 a month if you're an American. But if you are illegal, if you came to this country illegally, and you just hop the border, right, you get the apartment for free, and it's fully furnished. So we're going to talk about that. That's in Maine. I do want to get to Pete Hegseth this morning. He completely obliterated the press. We know that Pete Hegseth, he's the nominee for the Secretary of Defense. He was at Capitol Hill and Washington, D.C. He was trying to get senators to say yes to him. But between meetings, he took a moment to address the press. And I love this. Because he just laid into the press. He told them how much they suck at their jobs. And it really doesn't matter how many hit pieces they do on Pete Hegseth, because guess what? At the end of the day, he doesn't answer to them. He answers to the senators. He has to get the senators on his side. He also has to listen to President Donald Trump. For as long as President Donald Trump wants him in this, he's going to stick in it. And he's just got this great response with the press. So I'll get to all of that here. Like I said, go ahead, find me on YouTube and on Rumble. Let's get into today's story about the LPGA. This is the Ladies Professional Golf Association, okay? And there is no such thing as a sex change. The Ladies Professional Golf Association has decided that to ban men, okay, from competing in women's sports, despite whether you get the sex change or if you transition to a woman, if you get surgery to get yourself a pair of tatas, right? It doesn't matter, because the LPGA says, nope, I don't care what kind of surgeries you have or anything like that. We're not going to allow you to compete against women because you definitely have a biological advantage, even if you get transitioning surgeries. You have a biological advantage over women, even if you get these transitioning surgeries. Okay. We're not going to allow you to compete against women just because you feel some type of way. Okay. So this is really interesting. And I'm going to get to the post-millennial article here because they lay it out pretty perfectly. And, Riley Gaines, she tweeted this out. She goes, the LPGA has updated their gender eligibility requirements to ban men from women's golf, which is great. Yes, I'm so glad. They said this is what the LPGA said. The effects of male puberty confer competitive advantages in golf performance compared to players who have not undergone male puberty. Okay, so they're saying that men who go through puberty have a competitive advantage over women. Yes, we all knew that. Now, according to the Post-Millennial, the LPGA announced an update on their gender policy for competition eligibility, banning biological men who went through puberty from playing alongside women, regardless of their gender identity. The new policy will go into effect for the 2025 season. Okay, here's where it gets weird. It's men who went through puberty. Now, there's a thing called puberty blockers that's kind of being fought in the Supreme Court, whether children should be on puberty blockers or states can ban that kind of thing, where we don't allow children to be on puberty blockers. But men who went on puberty blockers at a young age, right, they might be able to still compete. So if they, get on puberty blockers at age 5 and they don't undergo like puberty because the puberty blockers block it, they'll be allowed to compete as men because they didn't go through male puberty. It's specifically men who didn't go through male puberty. So they're not allowed to play, or men who didn't go through male puberty, they get to play in ladies golf tournaments or whatever. So under this new policy, athletes who are assigned female at birth are eligible to compete in the LPGA tour, all of these different tours and competitions. What? We're just supposed to pretend that these boys who get on puberty blockers at age 5, which is really, really sad, but they get on puberty blockers at age 5. That doesn't mean that they're not men anymore. Okay, just because you didn't go through male puberty, that doesn't mean that you're not a man. It's the Y chromosome that makes you a man, right? Can we all agree? And that's the why not ban men with or people with Y chromosomes from ladies golf? Why didn't they go there? They were playing both sides here. Okay, they have a biological, even if you don't go through male puberty. Now, I'm not going to say that, men who go through male puberty, they definitely have a biological advantage. There's still a biological and physical advantage that men have, even if they don't. Men are typically taller. And even if they don't go through male puberty, that is still a thing that they will wind up like taller than women. So they still have a biological and physical advantage, even if they don't go through male puberty. But this is just ridiculous. Why not ban people with Y chromosomes from the sport, right? They're trying to appease both sides here. Biological male players can be allowed to play if they have not experienced any part of male puberty, either beyond Tanner stage 2 or after age 12. Okay, so if you get on the puberty blockers before age 12, then you'd be allowed in. This is wild. This is really wild. Now, if you go through, I guess it's like a beyond Tanner stage 2. I don't know what that is. I guess it's a part of like puberty, and it's a certain stage of puberty that they've broken down. This is just pathetic. Transgender players, they should be they should have their own sport. Okay, if it's gonna be like this, they just make a transgender professional golf association. Okay, that's what needs to happen here. They cannot be joining the women. The transgender players must show that they have continuously maintained the concentration of testosterone in their serum below 2.5. This is so complicated. I mean, here's a thought. Just ban anyone with a Y chromosome. What about that? Why are we doing this? So you have to maintain a certain level of testosterone. You have to make sure it's below 2.5, whatever. I mean, come on. This is ridiculous and unhealthy because somebody is going to try to keep their levels of testosterone below a certain amount. And I mean, there's health complications that come with that. And they're going to try to, keep their testosterones low so they can play ladies golf. Just keep your testosterone and go play in the men's professional golf league or association. So it's still possible for men to compete in women's golf. Okay, that's the point of the story here. And I don't know. I mean, is that considered a win if you still have men competing in women's sports? Ultimately, because that's what this is. I mean, men get to still compete in the ladies' golf. So I don't think it's a win. This wouldn't have even been considered 10 years ago. People would look at you crazy like, wait a second, men can stop taking or can start taking puberty blockers and not go through puberty. And that is what classifies them as a woman if they don't go through male puberty. I mean, I just don't understand. It's unclear why society is somehow pretending that this is complicated. It's not very complicated at all. Cavemen understood this. Everybody before, 2024 understood that men are men, women are women. There's a Y chromosome. That's what makes you a man. Okay. You have two X chromosomes. That's what makes you a woman. Okay. So while this is a step in the right direction, I won't deny that. I definitely don't think it's a win. This is a way for the LPGA to kind of satisfy both sides here. And it's really sad because there's clearly a biological advantage. Even if men don't go through male puberty, we can't go down this slippery slope of saying that's what defines a man, that's what defines a woman, as if they go through male puberty, or if there's because there's states that are looking to block or to ban puberty blockers. Puberty, and whether you go through it or not, that's not the definition of whether you're a man or a woman. All right, I do have to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. We'll be right back. Woohoo! Go ahead and smash that like button. Share this out with your friends. I so do appreciate you tuning in each and every single morning. Now, go ahead and find it on Facebook. There's an article. And the headline is Candidate Complains Illinois County Officials Violated Campaign Finance Law. So this is a big one. A former candidate, now he was a county board candidate, he was in District 5. He's lodged a complaint with the Illinois State Board of Elections. Okay, so this is kind of a huge story. Now, Johnston, she told me that she's totally supportive of an investigation. Now, we know that Chad Burke said, hey, campaign elections are vital. Or campaigns and elections, they're vital to the life of this country, and we can't have shenanigans. Now, this feels like shenanigans, right? And this email, they describe, of course, Trevor Sierra being urged to contact certain people to get them to donate to this PAC. Allegedly, right, all we have is the email. We've got to try to fact check this, right, in an investigation of some kind, and hold people accountable, right, if this was going on. This is really easy, really, really simple. Let's find where the refund was drawn from. We know that Trevor Sierra did get a refund according to some text messages. He did, in fact, receive a refund of $200 or something like that. Because he had asked for it, because he said, and I'm quoting him here, that it was illegally obtained, or that they violated campaign finance law, and he wanted his money back because they took it from him illegally. So he did, in fact, get a refund, and there was a text message conversation that they had, and Lizzie did not say, hey, we didn't solicit the funds in violation of state law. Why are you saying that? I'm not issuing you a refund. Okay, she didn't come out and say that. So the text message is pretty damning between Johnston and Sierra. Sierra urged Johnston to issue a refund because of the funds being solicited illegally and collected illegally under this law. Now, it's real easy to find this law. Just look up the Campaign Disclosure Act. There's a section within that law that talks about, collecting and soliciting funds for a political action committee or for a candidate on government property with government resources. there's a section within that law that talks specifically about this. It says you can't do it. Okay, but Johnson said that I'm supportive of an investigation to determine the facts. Now, there was also another complaint, not with the Illinois State Board of Elections, but with the McLean County Ethics Commission, because the alleged incidents, they violated county ethics code as well. So he filed a complaint with them as well. And Johnson said that the appointees of this election, that was a big question mark because we were kind of confused if the Ethics Commission was going to be made up of, people who were appointed by her as the chair, because she's the now chair. The Ethics Commission, they could have swapped out the Ethics Commissioner. She should have, or could have appointed new commissioners on that Ethics Commission, but they were all recommended by previous chairs and not herself. So she confirmed that the appointees were not her appointees, but rather other chairs, previous chairs, whether that be John McIntyre or Catherine Metzger, right? She was the chair prior to Lizzie becoming the chair. But yeah, it could have all been them or it is a previous chairs. That's what she said on Johnston. She confirmed that the appointees are not her appointees on this commission, which would have been, a conflict of interest, being that the complaint is against herself. So Berg said he's shocked that amidst the allegations, the county board members unanimously voted Johnston to be chair. Yeah, you've got these allegations against you, and then they kind of ignored it, right? All of these county board members, and they appointed her to be chair. That's a bit shocking to me. We're back. Let's continue with today's stories. I do want to get into, of course, Pete Hegseth. I do want to talk about these migrants in Maine, how they got these free apartments. You and I would have had to pay $2,000 if we wanted to stay in these luxury apartments. So. Woohoo! Grab your cup of coffee and pour some hot coffee because we've got some hot news. We gotta get to this story out of Maine. While Americans suffered, of course, under record inflation, out of control inflation, they struggled to make ends meet. Okay, Americans. We've got migrants in Maine now. They have been awarded free furnished housing for 2 years solely because they've broken immigration laws, and that's really disappointing. This is a quick video. Savannah Hernandez, she is a reporter there, and she talked with people in these luxury apartments. You and I would have had to pay $2,000 if we wanted this luxury apartment, but because these people broke federal immigration laws, they get it for free. Let's take a listen.
Here. Free. 2 years.
After 2 years, we have to pay the rent.
All right, y'all, this is Savannah Hernandez in Brunswick, Maine, reporting to you from the apartments where migrants are getting their rent paid for up to 2 years. Now, I wanted to give you guys a first inside look at these units. The migrants shared with us that they come furnished. So they have a flat screen TV in there, couches, tables and chairs, a bed. We also asked them as well, hey, are you paying utilities here? They shared with us that nope, they do not have a water bill. They do not have an electricity bill.
And what about the light and the water?
Everything is good. We don't pay anything.
Now, I wanted to focus in on this area of Maine because there is a housing crisis going on currently for residents, and these buildings were initially created for Maine residents, but then it was decided that homeless migrants would be living here. Now, as an American, you can rent out one of these units, but a 1-bedroom is going to run you about $1,800, and a 2-bedroom is going to run you about $2,300. By the way, the average housing price for a house over here in Brunswick is about $480,000. So there was obviously a lot of outrage when it was first discovered that migrants were going to be housed here for free on taxpayer dollar. Now,
okay, so I wanted to share that with you. These people are living this luxury lifestyle free for 2 years. It must be nice living there compared to whatever, crappy country you came from. It's not my fault that you came from that crappy country. And I always say this, about illegal immigration. It's never going to get better if we continue to allow people to flee those areas They're not going to, go to school there in those areas. They're not going to try to better themselves or better their communities if they just keep fleeing those communities and coming here. They should work instead of saying, I want to leave and find a better life. They should work and make a better life where they're planted, right? Bloom where you're planted. So why do I, as a taxpaying citizen, have to pay for flat screen TVs and they shouldn't even be here? Okay. And you just get a flat screen TV in this luxury apartment, for simply breathing and breaking federal immigration law? Why do Americans have to pay over $2,000 to get the same standard of living as these people who disrespected our laws, our federal immigration laws? Why are they being treated? Why are we as Americans being treated as second-class citizens in our own country? And how is this legal? Really, how is this legal where you just house people who break federal immigration laws with taxpayer dime? It makes absolutely no sense. So this is going to be bad for people who are actually seeking asylum, people from war-torn countries, or people who are dealing with war, Ukrainian refugees, right? People who are actually living in areas where their lives are threatened. That's asylum. That's seeking asylum. It's not asylum when you want to leave your country because you don't have enough money or you want to seek economic prosperity, okay? That's not seeking asylum. That's fleeing to a country because you're not willing to do the work, what it takes to make your community a better place. I'm just going to be honest, okay? So we're being treated like second-class citizens in our own country. I don't understand how it's legal. Not to mention, you've got the asylum seekers. It makes it meaningless, okay? People affected by war in places where they'll actually be killed in their country, they actually need asylum. And then you're giving asylum to migrants who, don't even, they aren't even grateful for it. So there's actually this clip. I'm not going to play it because it's all in Spanish, but the illegal immigrants, they actually in New York, they were questioned about this. What do you think about the housing, the food? And they said, oh, they give us no help. They gave us free hotels, right? And we're staying in this hotel, and there's only one bed, and there's three of us. There's three of us to a hotel room, and then they gave us all kinds of bad food, frozen food. That's just wow. Really, that they expect these things when they get to America. They expect free housing, luxury housing, and Americans are being thrown to the curb. And some Americans barely can make ends meet. Okay, so to top it all off, you got FEMA spending billions and billions of dollars in these programs. These programs, this is taxpayer money that they're spending on programs like this that house the illegal immigrants. And they're not even pretending to care about the Americans who are suffering from the natural disasters in the Southeast. Some are homeless there in the Southeast. They have no homes because the natural disasters destroyed their home. Resources are prioritized for people who disrespect our federal immigration laws. That's what the resources are for. They're not for you and me to use. Although we pay into it, right? We pay into these programs, and we should be reaping the benefits of those programs and the benefits of this department, FEMA. I got to take a quick break, but we're going to play that when we come back, that clip, or a clip that exposes FEMA for what it is. They've spent $1 billion on these programs, and it's going to break it down for you. Plus, I do want to get to Pete Hegseth. He's Donald Trump's Secretary of Defense pick, and he was at Capitol Hill. He was on Capitol Hill last week, and he addressed the press. And by address, I mean he completely laid it out for them how much they suck at their jobs and how much he could care less about their stupid hit pieces. I'll be right back. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the News and Talk Bloomington Normal. Hey, go ahead, smash that like button. When we come back, we're going to be talking a little bit about FEMA and where they've allocated the resources. Definitely not to the Southeast for Americans who don't have any anything at all. They're homeless in some cases. Their homes were destroyed. They've got no resources, no food, no water. Still, I mean, they're still dealing with that. I think JD Vance was actually up there trying to provide relief, or trying to work and get them some relief. So we're going to talk about FEMA and how they're not helping the people from Hurricane Helene in the Southeast. I also want to talk about our future defense secretary. I'm really excited to have Pete Hegseth be our defense secretary, especially after this clip where he says, look, I don't answer to the press. I answer to Donald Trump. As long as he wants me to be in this fight, I will be in this fight, standing right next to him in this fight. And he says, I answer to my Lord and Savior. I answer to my wife and my family. I don't answer to the press. I don't answer to you guys digging up anonymous sources saying that I have a drinking problem. You know, they tried to Kavanaugh him. Okay. They accused him of sexual assault, and that didn't stick because the police conducted an investigation and they said, nope, this is dumb. Essentially, right? I'm paraphrasing, but the police investigation turned up nothing. So now what are they doing? They're calling him a drunk. They're digging up anonymous sources at Fox News saying that he drinks too much. Give me a break. And nobody's called him an alcoholic. Okay, from what I can see in these hit pieces, the Washington Post did one. Nobody says like he's got a drinking problem or he's an alcoholic. They say that he drinks a lot, and they're trying to insinuate that he's got a drinking problem, of course. But they have no proof, right? No DUIs, no nothing that suggests that he's an actual alcoholic or that he has a problem with drinking. So here's the thing. I don't think that it's a bad thing that you've got, a Secretary of Defense who enjoys a beer on St. Patrick's Day. No, quite literally, some employees talked with the Washington Post, and they said that it was jarring to see Hegseth drink warm beer after a segment, wait for it, on St. Patrick's Day. Okay, so maybe after a segment, I don't know if this is true. I can't take it for anything because they're anonymous Fox News employees. I mean, right? Anonymous sources. I just don't trust that. Okay, especially when you have people who have come out and have said he doesn't have a drinking problem, and they're using their name. And some people have actually won medals of honor. Okay, they're respected people in their communities, and they use their name and they say, hey, he doesn't drink. He doesn't have a drinking problem. Okay, so you've got veterans who have won medals of honors who have vouched for Pete Hegseth not having a drinking problem, but they're never quoting those people, right? They'll only quote the anonymous hacks at Fox News. So they talked about this, CNN, and I'll get to CNN and how they talked about how Pete Hegseth has a drinking problem, which is so dumb because that Kamala Harris was never criticized for her drinking problem. Okay, so Kamala Harris, she used to go to a wine club, or goes to a wine club regularly, and she uses an anonymous alias, a fake name, to purchase her booze. Now, I don't know about you, but that is definitely more indicative of a drinking problem than drinking maybe a little bit of a warm beer on St. Patrick's Day after a news segment. Okay. That suggests to me more of a drinking problem if you're going to a wine club pretty consistently and buying booze under an alias. Who does that? Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just use your real name? Probably because you don't want people knowing that it's you going to the wine club multiple times a day to go get your go get your booze for the day, or go get your wine bottles. So Kamala Harris hid behind a fake name to go get alcohol. That's weird. And that's beyond weird. In fact, it's kind of indicative of an alcohol problem, not to mention Pete Hegseth always looks composed in interviews. And I don't think I could say the same for Kamala Harris. What do you think? Does Kamala Harris have a drinking problem? And here's my point, though. Even if she did have a drinking problem, the media isn't going to cover it. They're only going to cover Pete Hegseth's maybe drinking problem when it's pretty evident that Kamala Harris has a drinking problem. They won't cover that. But when it's oh, maybe he's had a few drinks and maybe we could spin this into telling everybody that he's an alcoholic, we're definitely going to cover that. I do want to get to that. But we are going to wrap up this story about the migrants getting the $2,000. It's very important that I talk about FEMA and how they're not allocating resources to those areas. They're only allocating them for the people who broke our federal immigration laws. There's people who are homeless in these areas, the southeast area after Hurricane Helene, and they're prioritizing the people who have disrespected our federal immigration laws. So smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Should these American people be forgotten? I don't even think it's that they're forgotten. I think it's deliberate. FEMA not providing resources to these people in these areas. I think that it's deliberate because it's a different way of life there. It's not this city life, right? They're mountain folk. And I'm pretty sure that this is a deliberate action from FEMA withholding aid or not providing aid to them. Ooh, hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. Let's take a listen to this. This is a Fox News report about the Helene victims in the Southeast. Okay, now we know that FEMA has spent billions and billions of dollars, and they're not even pretending to care about the Americans who are suffering from the natural disaster still. There's still people there suffering, they're homeless. But we're prioritizing the migrants in Maine who got the luxury apartments for $2,000. You and I would have had to pay $2,000 a month for those luxury apartments. But guess what? These migrants don't have to pay that for 2 years. They get free housing for 2 years. It's fully furnished apartment. They don't even have to pay utilities. Let's take a listen to this. This is a Fox News report about the Hurricane Helene victims and how they're still reeling from all of the losses in the tragedy. So take a listen.
When you talk to people here, it's clear they're tough. They don't complain. But really, there is a sense that they have been forgotten by FEMA.
I'm not too impressed with FEMA. They have put off my case. I had an inspection October 24th. The flood happened September 27th. And the flood, there was Milton, the hurricane that came after that. So FEMA has been really backed up. But I was told by my inspector on October 24th that I would hear something within 10 days. And it's already December 2nd, and I haven't heard anything.
Wow. So they're getting since the FEMA has forgotten them. Here's the thing, folks. I think FEMA would love if the masses believed the lie that Americans have been forgotten. No. I don't think it's that Americans have been forgotten. I think that this is deliberate. They are prioritizing migrants. Clearly, these programs, they spent billions on these programs, billions of taxpayer dollars, but mind you, to house illegals for 2 years in luxury apartments with flat screen TVs. Meanwhile, those resources were not allocated at all to the people who are really at all. I mean, you've got this woman being ghosted by FEMA. She's got a case. She needs resources. They keep prolonging her case. I mean, it's already December 2nd. The hurricane happened September 27th. That's what she said. And they were supposed to do something by October 24th. Then they ditched her again. This is deliberate. This is not, oh, we forgot about you. It's completely deliberate. And the proof that it's deliberate is that they keep funding these migrants in the luxury apartments in Maine for $2,000 a month, whereas you and I would have to pay $2,000 a month. They don't have to pay utilities. They don't have to pay rent. Nothing. Do you need more proof that the government absolutely hates you? Absolutely hates you. Now, I do want to share a quick story. Actually, so I was talking with somebody and she goes, "Oh, I'm from DuPage County. I work in DuPage County." Okay, and she was talking about how she works there and how helpful she is to people. She was talking about how she waived a divorce fee for somebody. And she goes, "I'm extremely helpful in my role in government because I waived a divorce fee for somebody." You know, these people will say, "Oh, we're so helpful. We help you. You know, you force us into these situations like having to pay a divorce fee. You have to pay a fee when you get married. You have to pay a fee when you get divorced, you have to pay fees. Every single time you interact with the government, they force you to pay fees. I had to go pay and get my passport. And it was very, very expensive. Go get a passport, right? Just to travel out of the country. And they force you to have a passport, right? You need one in order to travel. So they craft laws in order for you to need or to rely on the government. And then the government turns around and says, oh, aren't you grateful? I waived that fee for you. No, you forced me into paying this fee. And with divorces and marriages, it used to be man, wife, God, and the government was not a part of it at all. In fact, it was, your church, your community, and they'd help you either through that marriage or they'd, help you through out of that marriage. And then the government got a hold of the institution of marriage. And now they force you to pay fees and go through legal proceedings and sign certificates and all of that. And then they, they waived a $50 fee for you one time. And then they think that they're Jesus Christ. It's like, what's wrong with you? I found it really interesting. I was talking to this woman and I was just like, yeah, the people in the Southeast, they just don't trust the government anymore. And she goes, well, they should trust the government. I work in government and I'm the nicest person ever. I actually waived a fee for somebody one time. Wow, that's awesome. Good for you. But no, these people are mountain folk and they don't trust the government at all. When it comes to them even providing resources, right? They've keep lying. And of course, in this case, it's December 2nd and she's got a case with FEMA. She's supposed to be getting resources, but they keep ghosting her and prolonging our case. So of course she has no trust in the government. The government hates you. I don't think you need any more proof. Just look at what's going on in the Southeast here with the mountain folk. All right, I do have to take a quick break, but when we come back, Pete Hegseth. He completely obliterated the media. They've been trying to Kavanaugh him. That didn't work because there was a police investigation and these sexual assault charges or claims. He wasn't even charged, but a sexual assault investigation was just totally nonsense. And they stopped the investigation. Nothing came of it. So now they've switched from calling him a sexual predator to calling him a drunk and an alcoholic. We're going to get to it here on Conservative Cat. I'll be right back. Hey, good morning. So do appreciate you tuning in. Good morning. So men that think or say our women are actually delusional / frauds and just lying basically, and they're America's enemies say no to Hegseth. And what's this mean? I don't even. So men that think or say that their women are actually delusional and frauds and are basically lying, America's enemies say no to. And the more America's enemies say no to Hegseth, the more America says yes. Yeah, so the more you hate Pete Hegseth, the more I'm going to say, maybe he's the guy. I think that's what you're saying. And, I appreciate the comment. Pete Hegseth, right, they're going to keep saying, oh, he's a sexual predator. And then when that turns out to not stick, then they're going to say, oh, he's an alcoholic. I think that he'd do a great job in the Defense Department. And I think that he will undo the last 4 years of just incompetence. So I'm really excited. And now I just kind of want to see him in there because I'm spiteful. When you go after people you're damaging somebody's reputation. Okay. This kind of stuff, if this were to happen back in the 1700s or 1800s, there was duels over this kind of stuff. If you accused a man of sexual assault back in the day, in the 1800s, you would find yourself in a duel and you'd probably not make it out with your life. Okay. We used to challenge people to duels if they went after our reputation and it turned out that those accusations were false. Okay, making false accusations about somebody is not something that we should take lightly. I'm not saying we should go back to dueling days, but when you make false accusations about somebody, you should definitely be held accountable. These media outlets who claimed that he was in a after this investigation has been proven to be nothing, like a nothing burger, and it's just, it hasn't gone anywhere, they should be very, very open about that on their media platforms after months of them reporting, oh, he's under investigation for sexual assault, under investigation. And then when the investigation actually happens and there's nothing there, they need to come out and they need to report on that. Okay, you probably didn't realize that that investigation, that sexual assault investigation, concluded, and it was non-conclusive. They found nothing on Pete Hegseth. There was no evidence that he committed any kind of sexual assault or harassment. And now they've switched over to calling him a drunk, right? Or alleging that he has a drinking problem. Okay, when you make allegations against somebody and those allegations turn out to be false, then you need to report that those allegations were false. Okay, you need to come back and report the story correctly. Now, I'm not even saying that they shouldn't report on the criminal investigation or say, hey, Pete Hegseth is allegedly a sexual predator. He's under investigation for sexual assault. I'm not saying that they shouldn't report on that. What I am saying is once that investigation is concluded and the results are that he is in fact not a sexual predator or committed a sexual assault, and we know that from the results of the investigation, then they need to come out and report on that. But they've omitted that. They have not reported on that, and they've switched gears, and now they're calling him a drunk, rather than reporting on the facts of that investigation, that nothing ever came out of it. So, yes, the more they go after Pete Hegseth, the more I say, I want him to get in just because, out of spite now, because I'm sick of these political activists. And I think that they need to draw a line in the sand. I'm kind of nervous because of the way Pete Hegseth talked about this with the press, and we're going to get to the clip here. He kind of says, as long as Donald Trump wants me to stay in this fight. Now, that kind of worries me. Like, why would President Donald Trump not want you to continue to fight and be the defense secretary? Is there talks about you possibly bowing out like Matt Gaetz? Now, they already got their scalp with Matt Gaetz, okay? The left, the media, they got their scalp. That was their freebie. The line needs to be drawn in the sand. Otherwise, it's not just going to be Pete Hegseth. Next, you're going to have Tulsi Gabbard, which they've already been kind of laying the groundwork for this for Tulsi Gabbard, okay? Because they can't get Hegseth, okay? What? He drank a beer on St. Patrick's Day after a Fox News segment, right? That's the most you've got on this guy. They can't get him because the criminal investigation was inconclusive, or like they found out that he was not a sexual predator, and that's the result of this investigation. Now they've got to go after Tulsi Gabbard. They're going to go after RFK. They're going to go after Kash Patel. The line needs to be drawn in the sand right now with Pete Hegseth. Woo! Hey, good morning. It's the fourth segment of the 6 o'clock hour. We're going to talk about Pete Hegseth now. You guys can find me on YouTube, on Rumble. I so do appreciate you tuning in. Now, Pete Hegseth, he is going to be the Secretary of Defense. He's the nominee. And he was on Capitol Hill, and he was talking with senators, and he's trying to get senators to vote him in, to confirm him. Okay, so he's there trying to get senators to confirm him, to get on his side, and to support his nomination. Now, he addressed the press while he was there on Capitol Hill, and by address, I mean he completely obliterated them and told them how much they suck at life and how much their opinion means to him. Let's take a listen.
I'm proud of what I fought for. I'm not going to back down from them one bit. I will answer all of these senators' questions, but this will not be a process tried in the media. I don't answer to anyone in this group. None of you, not to that camera at all. I answer to President Trump, who received 76 million votes on behalf and a mandate for change. I answer to the 100 senators who are part of this process and those in the committee. And I answer to my Lord and Savior and my wife and my family. I'm proud to be here. And as long as Donald Trump wants me in this fight, I'm going to be standing right here in this fight, fighting to bring our Pentagon back to what it needs to be.
to what it needs to be. There's Pete Hegseth, and they tried to Kavanaugh him. Like I said, they accused him of sexual assault in the media. Pete Hegseth is, accused of sexual assault, and it didn't stick. And they're not reporting that it didn't stick, and that the investigation resulted, and it proves that he was not a sexual predator or committed any kind of sexual harassment or assault. That's what the investigation proves. But now what they're doing in the media, they're getting all of their anonymous sources. They're digging up these anonymous sources from Fox News, and they're claiming that, oh, he had a beer in his hand. He has a drinking problem. They're trying to paint him as if he has a drinking problem. It's really interesting. Pay attention to the way they phrase this. They never call him an alcoholic. They never call him a drunk. And here's the reason why. There is no proof. There's no proof. There's no DUIs. There's nothing like that. Maybe he had a beer in his hand. But they're being very careful about it, and you can hear it in their rhetoric and in their semantics here. The media dances around it. They don't flat out call him an alcoholic, or they don't call him a drunk. They're being very careful because they know it's false. They're trying to paint him in the media or get you to believe that he is a drunk. The future defense secretary obviously had enough. He addressed this group, this gaggle press, and he said, hey, as long as Donald Trump wants me in this fight, I'm going to stand right here and I'm going to fight. And I'm going to fight to bring the Pentagon back to what it needs to be. So there's just a bunch of hit pieces out there, and I want to unpack a couple of them. There was a couple in the Washington Post. The Washington Post probably has the worst hit piece out here. It's ridiculous. It's offensive. And they are alleging now that he drank a warm beer after a segment, wait for it, on St. Patrick's Day. Okay, even if he did this, who cares? Okay, right? I mean, yeah, you're a news personality, likely, after a segment, you drank a beer. I mean, who cares? Right? I just don't understand why this is like, this is the hill that they're going to die on. Like, oh, this is so important to discuss. What? So these two alleged anonymous Fox News employees found it jarring to see Hegseth drink a warm beer after a segment, wait for it, on St. Patrick's Day. They thought it was weird that he drank a beer. So CNN, they thought that this was a very important issue to discuss. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
Hegseth fights to hold on to his nomination for defense secretary. He arrived on Capitol Hill just a short time ago. As new reporting from the Washington Post cites 6 former Fox News employees who say they witnessed Hegseth drinking at questionable moments. They say Hegseth, quote, had a reputation as a heavy drinker, and they say they saw him, quote, drinking on the job or visibly drunk at work events. CNN has learned that Hegseth has faced questions from senators, including, are you an alcoholic? Are you a womanizer? And did you embezzle money?
Oh, boy. There you have it. They found that very, very important to talk about. CNN. We're going to be back. We're going to wrap up this story about Pete Hegseth. The line needs to be drawn, folks, because if they don't draw the line with Hegseth, they're going to start going after RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard. They're already starting with Tulsi Gabbard. They're saying that she's a Russian-like asset, or she's compromised. Okay. So we're going to get to all of that here on Conservative Cat next at the top of the hour. You're listening to Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. All right, folks, go ahead and smash that like button. Share this out with your friends. I so do appreciate it. Let me get to some of your comments. Being illegal is the new social elite. Ask Hunter Biden. Yeah, have you seen this? All of these preemptive pardons, which I think Nixon has done before, or Nixon did this before, where they did a preemptive pardon. It's not done like most presidents don't do this sort of thing where they preemptively pardon people. But now we're looking at preemptive pardons, as I reported on, I think on Friday, that Liz Cheney, Adam Schiff, Tony Fauci, they could all be getting preemptive pardons. And, I think it's kind of interesting. People were actually making pillows. Gretchen Whitmer, right, the Michigan governor, she had a pillow of Tony Fauci's face, and like he was socially elite, but he was committing all kinds of illegal things, including lying to Congress. Like this is an actual fact that he lied to Congress about gain of function research in the United States, paying for that gain of function, Tony paying for that gain of function research over in Wuhan that ultimately resulted the pandemic breaking out, okay, the gain of function research that caused the pandemic to break out. So that was because you had government hacks like Tony Fauci funding this sort of creepy, weird sciences over in Wuhan at this lab. So yeah, the word or being illegal or doing bad things almost makes you cool. Same thing here locally, right? You've got Lizzie Johnson. You know, whether or not these allegations are true, the email is damning, the text messages are damning. We'll have to find out what goes on in this investigation and the results of the investigation, because unlike CNN, unlike the Washington Post, I'm going to say that she allegedly did this and that these are damning text messages, damning emails that are you could easily prove that they did this, right? They collected money from people on government property and they broke campaign finance law, allegedly. Now there's a complaint with the Illinois State Board of Elections via Chad Burke. He filed that complaint, but allegedly, right? I'm not saying that they did it. I think that there needs to be an investigation and we need to find out if that money was collected and where that money went. That's the easiest way to prove if they did this, is where that money went and where that money was actually refunded out of for Trevor Sierra. Trevor Sierra needs to, hopefully cooperate in an investigation, especially after he made these allegations, right? So, but, facing these allegations, you're actually awarded with the social, you're like the social elite, Lizzie Johnson, unanimously, right? While facing very credible, unlike what's going on with Pete Hegseth, right? This was totally not credible. You've got, unlike Brett Kavanaugh, there's an actual name. Okay. I'm not even going to say what they did to Brett Kavanaugh was terrible. But it was definitely more credible. Those allegations were more credible, even though the woman didn't know where and when and couldn't say where and when this alleged sexual assault or this incident had happened, which ruins your credibility as somebody who wages, these allegations or launched this accusation against Brett Kavanaugh. Unlike that case, you've got Pete Hegseth here, and it was an anonymous name. Like that, she didn't even give her name. Okay, it was just some woman who said that this happened, and like, wait a second, you're not even willing to publish your name, and I'm supposed to believe you? Come on, this is just ridiculous. Your name means something, and to hide proves to me that you're not willing to, fight for what's right, and that you're lying, right? You should publish your name. So yeah, the illegal or the allegations against Lizzie Johnson, I wanted to talk about this. Unanimously, she was selected as chair. When these allegations definitely, I would say, are more credible than things like what Pete Hegseth is going through. You've got Pete Hegseth, there's anonymous. We have an email. We have somebody's name, Trevor Sierra. We have dates where he lays out when the collection and the solicitation of these funds happened. Okay, so he lays it all out. There's a text message that kind of correlates with his story in this email. And Lizzie Johnson texts back and says, yes, we'll provide you a refund. Okay, so I mean, there's definitely more damning things within this allegation and this accusation, but she gets to go ahead. Okay, when there's more credible accusations against people, like, for example, Hunter Biden. Definitely credible. In fact, I think he actually admitted in his book that he bought this gun. He admitted that he was using drugs at this time, that he had lied on his background check to obtain a firearm, okay? So, I mean, totally credible accusations, totally credible charges, right? Because there's, I don't know, Hunter Biden admitted it, okay? You've got text messages, emails in the Lizzie Johnson case, but these people get to go ahead. They keep moving up. They keep making money. They keep getting into positions of power. It's like Michael Madigan, right? I mean, I like how Chad Burke kind of phrased it. He goes, little things like this, it's like a tadpole, but eventually she'll become a frog, like a Michael Madigan. And, she's in a small pond right now, but maybe she'll be a frog in a bigger pond later on. And this is how it all starts, the corruption. And it just feels like the more illegal and the more credible these allegations are, and the more it's evident that you're corrupt, and it's more evident that you're illegal, the more you're rewarded. So it's just wild to me. Barack Obama made his own beer in the White House. Interesting. Yeah. There's plenty of people who drink. There's no proof, no DUIs, right? I mean, that would be the thing that would suggest that he's a drunk and that he's an alcoholic, is a DUI of some kind or public intoxication, if he's been charged with that. But there is no such thing, okay? There's more against Kamala Harris than there is Pete Hegseth to suggest that she's a drunk, okay? Woo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you tuning in each and every single morning. Now, I do want to play this clip. This is MSNBC. Before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about CNN. This is also CNN. Okay, so CNN thought it was really, really important that we talked about Pete Hegseth drinking a beer on St. Patrick's Day. Okay, everybody drinks on St. Patrick's Day. Heck, I just don't understand. There's so much more against Kamala Harris to suggest that she's a drunk, not Pete Hegseth. Kamala Harris, and nobody reported on this in the media, she would go to a wine club and purchase wine bottles under an alias. Okay, that's factual. And nobody reported on that while she was running for president. But you've got Pete Hegseth drinking a beer, maybe, because these are anonymous sources, like I said. That totally throws all credibility out the window. And I don't understand. I never use an anonymous source. I've never in my entire journalistic career have used an anonymous source ever. I don't think. I gotta think, maybe once. Maybe twice in my journalistic career. I've never, and I try not to use anonymous sources. Like, you should definitely attempt to not use anonymous sources as a journalist. But these CNNers, they do this all of the time. They did it when they tried to Kavanaugh him. They accused him of sexual assault. That didn't stick. There was a criminal investigation. It turned up nothing, right? Of course, he didn't commit sexual harassment. There was no crime. There was an actual police investigation, but they didn't report, of course, on the results of the investigation. Instead, they switched to calling him a drunk, and they dug up more anonymous sources. So the woman who accused him of sexual assault, we don't even know her name. Unlike the Kavanaugh situation, where there was an actual woman, although she couldn't say where and when it happened, the incident, the sexual assault incident, which was threw out some credibility, and it totally destroyed her credibility because she couldn't say where or when this incident happened. It's even less credible with Pete Hegseth's case because there is no woman. Okay, it's just an anonymous source. Another story here, anonymous source. They're digging up anonymous sources, and they're claiming, these anonymous sources claim to have seen a beer in his hand on St. Patrick's Day. Who cares? I think there's more with Kamala Harris that suggests that it's indicative that she is a drunk. She's an alcoholic because she was buying wine at this wine club under an alias multiple times. She bought some wine at this wine club under an alias. Now, I don't know about you. I don't use an alias when purchasing alcohol. To me, that kind of suggests that you're trying to hide it, which suggests to me then that you are an alcoholic. And that you're not proud of, your actions here in obtaining the alcohol, which suggests to me that you might be trying to hide something. Here, he, is accused of openly drinking on St. Patrick's Day. Oh boy, the horror. Let's take a listen.
But new reporting Wednesday night from the Washington Post cites several employees from his time as a Fox News host that seem to undercut those claims. They write this, quote, Hegseth had a reputation as a heavy drinker, according to 6 former Fox News employees who worked directly with Hegseth and saw him drinking on the job or visibly drunk at work events. They spoke on the condition of anonymity out of fear of retaliation. Hegseth's lawyer denied the reports when asked for comment by the Washington Post. Now, Hegseth needs to win over Republican senators to get confirmed.
Okay, these people, they're acting like they're the morality police, right? I think that maybe drinking on St. Patrick's Day. Now, I am going to share with you, Pete Hegseth, actually, it was a group of us. We're young adults, and we're at a bar, okay? And we were there for a TPUSA event. He comes by, and he starts talking with us, and he asks us, where we're going to college and stuff like that. And then he buys the table a round of shots, which I thought was really, really cool. He wasn't drinking. He just bought them all for us. He didn't take a shot with us or anything like that, but he bought them all for us, which was really, really neat. And nice and genuine, right? This is what Americans do. Sometimes they drink after 5 o'clock, which it was after 5 o'clock. We were there for a conference and everything. And he came by and he was chatting with us, and he, it was really nice. And he bought us all a round of shots, which I thought was really cool. Yeah, that's what normal human beings do. I'll tell you what they didn't report on, right? They didn't make a fuss about who is it? I forget his name. Sam Britton, I think it is, who was stealing women's clothes. That's not a very moral thing to do. Okay, drinking, occasionally. I don't think that that's immoral in comparison to I don't know, stealing women's clothes at the airport. Okay, and there's been multiple occasions of flashing people your fake boobs on the Washington DC front lawn there. There was somebody there that did that while they were there for like an LGBTQ Pride Month day or whatever. And his supporters, Joe Biden supporters, got on the White House front lawn and flashed their fake boobs for everybody to see. I mean, come on, that's immoral. Now you got CNN here trying to be the moral police and saying, Pete Hegseth has a drinking problem. Okay, maybe he's been seen drinking. Okay, like what? I just don't understand. There's no DUIs, there's no crime, no public intoxication. You just got a bunch of anonymous sources that say that he was drinking. Okay, they're also saying, and this is something that's important, that getting a Bronze Star, so he's got a Bronze Star, okay? He won 2 Bronze Stars, or was awarded 2 Bronze Stars, and the Washington Post says, oh, that's no big deal. Who cares? Who cares? So you've got this. I want to point this out. This is a headline from 2009. Back from Iraq, a Bronze Star from Biden, okay? And this is what they said in the article. They said the man who served 2 tours of duty in Iraq as an intelligence analyst was given one of the Army's most prestigious awards this month by Vice President Biden. Okay, one of the most prestigious awards. That's what they called it, a Bronze Star in 2009. The Washington Post. I'm talking about their headlines. In 2009, they talked about this guy who got a Bronze Star, and they called it the Army's most prestigious, one of the Army's most prestigious awards. Fast forward, you've got this. Here's the headline: Bronze Stars, like those Hegseth earned, are common among military officers. Okay, so which is it? This is it's ridiculous. Which is it? Is it the most prestigious award, or is it common? Okay, so it's different for some people. In 2009, for this guy, it was a prestigious award, but in 2024, it's common because Pete Hegseth got one. I support Pete Hegseth. I supported him before all of these stupid allegations and that aren't credible. And the reason why I say they're not credible is because there's no name. Nobody making these allegations is willing to put their name out there. And like I was telling people on the stream, back in the 1700s, 1800s, you would duel over this sort of stuff. If you made allegations against somebody and you tried to damage their reputation, especially as a man, if you try to damage a man's reputation, and that is like their whole thing, right? to this day, men, they really respect their reputation and they don't want it disparaged or ran through the mud, right? And they hold it very dear to their hearts, right? And naturally, it's a natural thing to want to be respected. And when you drag somebody's name through the mud back in the 1800s, you die for that sort of behavior. If you made false accusations, you would die for those kinds of things. Now, I'm not saying that we should do that. I'm saying if you're making false accusations, if you're running somebody's name through the mud, what you need to do is be held accountable. To make false accusations, you should be held accountable if those accusations, if there's a criminal investigation and it proves that those allegations were definitely false and that Pete Hegseth is not a sexual predator, although everybody called him one, then you need to be held accountable for making false accusations and lying. So I think he's going to do a great job with the Defense Department, and I think he's going to undo the last 4 years of incompetence. And I want to see him get in. Not really, just not even really. At this point, I want to see him get in because I out of spite. The left and the media, they got their scalp with Matt Gaetz. That was their freebie. I'm done. Out of spite now because of how hard you've gone after Pete Hegseth. I want to see him get the job just to stick it to the man, right? So a line needs to be drawn. I was kind of nervous there. He did talk about how, for as long as Donald Trump wants me, I'm going to stay right here in this fight next to him. I'm kind of worried. What if he bows out like Matt Gaetz did? A line needs to be drawn here right now. A line needs to be drawn in the sand because if they get Pete Hegseth, they're going to come after RFK Jr. next. They're already going after Tulsi Gabbard. I think it was Senator Tammy Duckworth, U.S. Senator Tammy Duckworth. She says that she's compromised, that she's indicated that she thinks that Tulsi Gabbard is a Russian asset. Give me a break. This is insane. They're going to go after Kash Patel. I'm just waiting for the headline to pop that RFK Jr. is accused of sexual assault or he's a sexual predator. Kash Patel accused of being violent or whatever, or being a sexual predator. I'm waiting for those accusations to fly because it's never enough for these people. They got their scalp with Matt Gaetz. That was their freebie. You got to stop going after the nominations. I'm going to be right back. I got to talk a little bit about John Fetterman. He was on The View, and he actually said that, I don't know about you, but I'm really enjoying John Fetterman's turn to common sense. Now, would I ever vote for John Fetterman, or am I going to support his opponent in 4 years? Yes. I know that he votes with Democrats on everything, but I do like this little bit of common sense that John Fetterman has recently turned to. And he is calling on Joe Biden to pardon Donald Trump like he did with Hunter Biden, because like Hunter Biden, he also believes that Donald Trump is a victim of a political witch hunt. That's interesting. So I'll be right back with John Fetterman on The View. I'm Conservative Kid on Cities 92.9. Hey, go ahead and smash that like button. I so do appreciate you tuning in each and every single day. They just bully people until they're out. Yeah, that's exactly what this is. It's bullying. And back in the day, like I said, 1700s, 1800s, you'd be challenged to a duel if you were bullying somebody like this. I'm in the East Tennessee in the mountains with the mountain folk. Yeah. Well, and so I'm just going to be honest with you. I was at a Bible study, and this woman, we were talking about a relief effort and, going down to the Southeast. And this man had brought up that a lot of these mountain folk don't trust the government, and that they have issues with FEMA coming in and providing the resources, and that they are actually looking to the church. And they don't want to take the resources from FEMA because simply they just don't trust it. So you got these mountain folks, they'll turn FEMA people right around. They'll say, nope, get out of here. We don't want you. We're waiting for our church or for our congregation. They're, the Bible Belt, right? They're trusting in God and not the government. Then there was this woman there at the Bible study, and she was talking about how she was a DuPage County employee, which I found really interesting, that she was like, oh, I don't want to come off as rude, but I'm in the government and people should definitely trust me because I'm such a nice gal. One, that logic is just absolutely ridiculous. Okay. It's very different, right? In DuPage County, if you're working, in the clerk's office or wherever you're at, in comparison to the type of government that these people are dealing with, FEMA, or people from the federal government coming in and trying to provide them resources or not providing them resources or prolonging their case. So in the case of, this article where she has a case and she's trying to get resources and they told her that she'd receive resources by October 24th. It's already December 2nd. She still hasn't gotten the resources, right? And she was and the hurricane happened September 27th. So that's very different what the people in the mountains are dealing with and people in the Southeast are dealing with when it comes to the government. Okay, they're dealing with FEMA, federal government. It's very different when you're talking about local government and, people who sign your divorce paper or file your divorce paperwork or file your marriage certificate or whatever you have to do, birth certificate, obtain a copy of your birth certificate, whatever you have to do at your local government, your county government offices. Okay. It's very different. Okay. First of all, so you can't compare apples to like oranges. But, even at the county level, there were definitely DuPage County. I know definitely I exposed, I think it was DuPage County. Let me look it up really quick. I want to say it was DuPage County. What I'm looking for is this. There was mail-in ballots, or not mail-in ballots. They were there at a polling place, and I think it was in Arlington. I'm going to have to look it up, but they were there, and I'm pretty sure it was in DuPage County, but don't quote me. It's a county up there, and if not DuPage County, the neighboring county. But there was a situation where people were in line for a couple of hours and wanting to put their ballots through the machines, but the machines weren't working, okay? And then you had this malfunction. It was a mistake on behalf of the government, and they screwed up. They didn't have enough voting machines to tally the ballots, and then they stuck them in the drawer. And then people, walked out and they said, "No way! I'm not going to be, sticking my ballot in a drawer to be counted later after the polls close. I'll come back." This was during early voting, so there's plenty of instances where the government screws up in situations like that, and it breeds mistrust. Okay, so something like that where, your voting machines malfunction, you don't have enough, you can't service people, and you make a mistake, that sows the mistrust. That's where the mistrust starts to happen. It's when you have mistakes. Now, you can be forgiving. I'm not saying not to forgive your government, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't listen to your government. The Bible tells us to listen to our government, right? But you should listen to authorities established by God. And if these people are lying to you, no, you have no obligation if they continue to tell you, oh, you're going to get resources, but they prolong your resources until December 2nd, and they lied to you and they said that you were going to get the resources on October 24th. No, you shouldn't trust people like that. You definitely shouldn't put all your trust in government. Your trust should be in God. In God we trust, right? So yeah, DuPage County government, sorry, lady, people don't trust the government, and that's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing. Woo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9 The News and Talk of Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you tuning in each and every single day. I'm alive from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. every morning, Monday through Friday. Before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about John Fetterman. I want to get to this story because he was on The View, and he says that Biden should pardon Donald Trump next. Now, like I said, I do like that John Fetterman has kind of turned to a little bit of common sense. Like he's made a shift, and he has a little bit of common sense that he's been laying out there, and he has had a recent turn to common sense after a stroke of all things. So I think that's kind of interesting. And sometimes near death experiences. I listened to his podcast, or to his episode on the Joe Rogan podcast, and sometimes these near death experiences can kind of enlighten you and open up your eyes a little bit to some truth. But like I said, he votes with Democrats a lot of the time. I'm going to support his opponent in 4 years. I am no John Fetterman fan, but I do like seeing him drop these harsh truths and these truth bombs on the left, and they're too ridiculous and nincompoop to listen and it kind of is fun to bring this story to you today. So he was on with the Yaks, with the Yaks at the View. So let's take a listen. Biden, of course, he's facing a lot of controversy, right? Because he pardoned his crackhead son after he said that he wasn't going to give him a pardon, but then he went a step further, gave him a full pardon and a preemptive pardon. He gave him a pardon for anything that he has been found guilty of or may be found guilty of over the span of 11 years. So this is an 11-year pardon. And not all Democrats agree with it, shockingly. Now, Fetterman said he's okay with the pardon, actually. He says, he does believe that Hunter was part of this political witch hunt. I'm going to be honest with you. I think that Hunter did the things that he did. He should be held accountable. If you and I were to do this, he definitely would be held accountable. I think to a degree, the amount of media coverage, but this comes naturally with the fact that he's the president's son. There's a political aspect to it, right? I don't think that he was overcharged or that he was... I think that he was treated as anybody else would, and then it got a lot of media attention, and it made it kind of impossible for him to kind of get it pled down. Although there was a plea bargain on the table that was awesome, or for Hunter Biden it would have been awesome. I want to play this. Fetterman was okay with the pardon because he felt a lot of the Hunter drama was a political witch hunt. I wouldn't go as far as to say it was a political witch hunt. I would definitely say there was... Hunter Biden was not going to be this situation was not going to be let go. Whereas if you or I were to do this, we would probably be charged to the fullest extent of the law, but we might be able to get it pled down or get it to be hush-hush if it was a first offense. Being that it was in such limelight, or being that it was in such a... he was the president's son, it was impossible for him to live this down if he would have been convicted of it. So let's take a listen. Here we go. Here's John Fetterman on the video.
So, Senator, President Biden's decision to pardon his son Hunter is facing bipartisan backlash. Even the Democrats are all over it. But what do you think? Is this much ado about nothing? It is his son, after all, and people do have sympathy for that. But a lot of people are angry with him about it. What do you say?
Oh, well, I think it's undeniable that the case against Hunter Biden was really politically motivated. But I also think it's true that the trial in New York for Trump that was political as well too. Now it's that, and in both cases, I think a pardon is appropriate, and I really think collectively, America's confidence in these kinds of institutions have been damaged by these kinds of cases. And we cannot allow these kinds of institutions to be weaponized against our political opponents. And it's very clear both trials were politically motivated and weaponized that on the other side.
Okay, so that was John Fetterman on The View, and he suggested that Donald Trump was another victim of this political witch hunt, and that he should be pardoned. Like I said, I don't think that Hunter Biden, he got treated like anybody else would have gotten treated. In today's world, with criminals are not being treated like criminals, and law-abiding citizens are being treated like criminals. I could have seen where, Hunter Biden could have let this, or like the criminal institutions, they would have let this go. The justice system would have let this go if it was, somebody else who had convicted or had been charged of these kinds of crimes. Now, he wasn't investigated for a lot of the big guy using his influence to get money, right, and using his dad to get money and to be placed on these boards, the foreign adversaries, boards of our foreign adversaries, right? He was using his dad. Now, that is a crime that he didn't even get looked at for. So he was treated differently, and I think that they could have gone even harder on him, actually. So it was political. But, you've got Fetterman. He admitted in the past that even as a sitting U.S. senator, he had no idea what Trump was being booked for in New York and what he was accused of in New York, specifically 34 bookkeeping errors in New York. It's hard for me to even really pinpoint, what he was convicted of and to explain it. They were like bookkeeping errors, if that. And Fetterman believes, get this, that Trump was found guilty on something no one else would have been found guilty unless, of course, they were declaring lawfare against him. And that's why he was found guilty, is because this was political lawfare. Okay, so Fetterman admitted that he had no idea what Trump was actually found guilty for, and it didn't make a whole lot of sense what he was charged with in New York. So I got to take a quick break, but we're going to play one more clip from John Fetterman. And I do also want to get to Joe Rogan. He goes in total beast mode, and he talks about the pandemic, and he says that all the conspiracy theorists were right. So I'm going to get to Joe Rogan on the Joe Rogan podcast here on Conservative Cat Cities 92.9 The News and Talk Blue Made to Normal. Woohoo! Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. We're going to come right back. We're going to be talking about John Fetterman, the senator here, and he isn't wrong, okay? The media and the Democrats, the party activists, as I like to call them, they'd get pretty emotional over a Donald Trump pardon, but it's the right thing to do. To pardon Donald Trump, okay? Clearly, that's a political witch hunt. I think that there could be an argument for Hunter Biden saying that, oh, the attention that this case got was definitely, but that's only natural because he's the president's son. Okay, it's kind of hard to let these charges go if it's in the or if it's in the media. Okay, and he would have had to answer for his crimes. But I don't think that the charges were trumped up. I don't think that they went after him too hard. In fact, there could be an argument made that they should have gone after him harder because of his, business dealings with our foreign adversaries and with foreign enemies, right? And using his father's political influence or using his father's role as vice president to obtain seats on boards and all of that. I think that we could have looked into that deeper and charged him with much more intense crimes. Now, for the crimes that I'm talking about with the gun charge and with the tax evasion, those kinds of things, I think that those could have slid in our current justice. They shouldn't slide because they are against the law. Everybody should be held to the same standard. But being under our current justice system, people who commit those types of crimes, like, come on, in Chicago, there's people who lie to they obtain guns illegally all of the time, and then they're back out on the streets like within 20 minutes. So I'll be right back. This is Conservative Cat. Woo! Hey, it's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk blooming normal. I want to be clear. So Hunter Biden, there were so many crimes that he wasn't charged with. Okay, there were so many crimes. He used his dad's influence and his dad's position to obtain board seats, foreign enemies, right, and to get all kinds of money from our foreign enemies because he was using his dad's position of power. And he saw no charges on these things. Now, I'm talking about the charges, the gun charge, right, where he lied on a background check and then obtained a firearm. He said that he wasn't using drugs. Obviously, he was using drugs. He admitted that in his book, of all places, at the time of when he obtained this firearm. So he lied on a background check. He also evaded taxes. He didn't pay his taxes, right? So those two charges, I think that, if you or I were to do that, we'd probably, if we were law-abiding citizens and not criminals with a habitual record of committing crimes, you or I probably would have been held to the full extent of the law. Now, criminals who have habitual crimes on their record, like Hunter Biden, okay, where he's got, strippers and prostitution, things like that, where, he's just a bad guy. Bad people tend to skirt our legal system. But because he was the president's son, he wasn't able to skirt the legal system. Like, for example, in Chicago, if you obtain a firearm illegally and you're charged with something, you probably are out on the streets within 20 minutes, okay, because of the Safety Act. So I think that to an extent, with these two charges, Hunter Biden not getting away with it was kind of abnormal just because he was the president's son. Bad people tend to get away with crimes in our current, it shouldn't be that way, but in our current justice system, bad people tend to get away with crimes. And I could see where there's an argument. John Fetterman made it that he was a victim of a political witch hunt, which I don't think that he was a victim of a political witch hunt. I think he got exactly what he was getting, or exactly what he deserved, charged with tax evasion, charged with lying on a gun, on a background check. And if you or I were to do that, we'd be sitting in jail for years and years and years, and we'd be paying for the rest of our lives if you or I were to commit these crimes. Now, if this guy in Chicago who has a habitual record of prostitution, cocaine, drugs, all of that, and he gets caught with this kind of stuff, he'll get a slap on the wrist and he'll be back out on the streets. So that's what I'm saying here. I'm not saying that Hunter Biden didn't deserve this. He definitely deserved it. But he was unable to skirt it like the guy in Chicago who would get a slap on the wrist for this kind of thing. He was unable to skirt it because he's the president's son. Rightfully, it should be in the media because he is the president's son. He's a public figure. Now, here's John Fetterman. I want to play this clip. We already played the clip where he talks about how Donald Trump should also be given a pardon because he is a victim of a political witch hunt. This is another clip where he talks about how he doesn't even really know what Donald Trump is accused of. And it's kind of hard to put your finger on it because they're trumped up charges. Now, this is an actual political witch hunt where they trumped up the charges, whereas Hunter Biden got exactly what he was getting. Okay, he was charged with tax evasion. He was charged with lying on a background check. And he was going to go before the judge and answer for those crimes. Okay, now Joe Schmo in Chicago probably would never have to get in front of a judge to answer for those crimes if he's got, a criminal background or if he's, a bad actor. A lot of bad actors skirt the legal system. And having to go before a judge and argue why they're innocent. You or I, if we as law-abiding citizens did this sort of thing, we would be in jail. We would be jailed for a long, long time and have to pay for the rest of our lives. Let's take a listen to Fetterman talking about the charges Trump, is faced and was convicted of. 34 bookkeeping errors is what I like to call them in New York. And Fetterman believes, get this, that Trump was found guilty on something that no one else would have been found guilty on. The only reason why he was found guilty was because he was a political opponent of Joe Biden.
They'll say that about the J6 people too, though, right? That's what they're going to say on the other side. That is weaponized.
I'm not referring to that. I'm talking about the New York trial. And now the Democrats on our side there were some that were gleeful calling it like, now he's a convicted felon and those things. And now for our party, we were talking about criminal justice and we are now talking about second chances. And now all of a sudden now you're like, well, he's a convicted felon and all these things. And now clearly, again, both of those trials, the Hunter Biden one and the trial in New York for Trump, that was politically motivated. And those kinds of charges would have never been brought unless one side they realize that they could weaponize that.
Yeah, the left does this all of the time. They'll talk about how they want to give second chances, that they're anti-convicting people, and they're anti, really justice system. The left does this all of the time. But when it comes to their political opponents, they're all for going after them legally. So one case here in Illinois, there was actually a law that was crafted. I have no idea where it's at now, but it was a bill that was introduced. And he wanted to, enhance penalties for people who flew the American flag upside down, which is a sign of distress that America's in stress. And people, actually, a local government official had flown the flag upside down on government property. And he was saying that there should be like $25,000 fine and that they should be like, these penalties were intense. So they're all against penalties until, they're against your political opponents. So people who are flying the flag upside down, those are typically your conservatives, your liberty-minded people, people who are voting for Donald Trump. They believed that America is in crisis and still do believe that America is in crisis and in a state of distress. That's why you fly the American flag upside down. He wanted to penalize people for that, which is freedom of speech, which, of course, if it was a BLM flag that he was flying, this local official, that's where this bill kind of started, and why the bill was introduced was because this local official did it on government property, and he wanted to enhance the penalties for that. If it was a BLM flag, there would be no charge, no penalties, nothing like that, or a pride flag, nothing like that. But because it was the American flag upside down, that was indicative of his political affiliation. And that's why he was going after him with all of these penalties. So Fetterman brings up this point that Democrats seem to be all against penalties until it's against your political opponent. And then they're willing to slap 34 felony convictions on you for what could be chalked up to as bookkeeping errors. So like I said, he's not wrong. The media, the Democrats, they'd probably lose their minds a little bit. They'd get a little emotional if Donald Trump was pardoned by Joe Biden. But it would be the right thing to do for this country, okay? Letting the incoming president come in with a clean slate, and he really should issue a pardon, Joe Biden, for Donald Trump. It would even help Democrats turn the page and start making changes everyone, except for the people who run the Democrat Party, want to see. They want to see changes, and they know they need to make changes, and this is the best way to kind of move forward. And, you know, in a sign of good faith, I'm going to pardon Donald Trump. I also think Joe Biden should do this, pardon Donald Trump, because his party screwed him over, and this would be the biggest, like, middle finger, like, revenge Joe Biden could take, is by pardoning Donald Trump. That would really make the left lose their minds and the Democrat Party lose their minds. So I think he should do it. All right, I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. We're going to come back. We're going to talk a little bit about Joe Rogan. You know, they called you a conspiracy theorist. We found out that there was gain-of-function research that we funded, gain-of-function research. They pointed at you like you were a crazy person for saying this, that we funded gain-of-function research, and the China virus came from a lab out of Wuhan, China. And, you know, the left never got a single thing right to this day, and they have yet to own up to it. You know, they said, oh, no, it didn't come from, it came from bats, right? The China virus came from bats. Coronavirus came from bats. That's not true. And they have yet to own up to this. We now know that this was definitely gain-of-function research out of a Wuhan lab. And they called you crazy for saying that back then. And they have yet to own up to their mistakes and to them being wrong about everything. The left demanded that you follow the science. What they really meant was the political science. This was all about politics. And there was nothing rooted in evidence. The 6 feet distancing, the masking mandates, the vaccination mandates, none of that was rooted in actual evidence and scientific evidence. And everything they demanded of you, whether that be the 6 feet social distancing, the closing up your business, deeming your business non-essential, all of that was arbitrary at best. And any real scientific explanation, prediction, or theory was labeled delusional. Like, for example, the China virus coming from a gain-of-function research project that was done, and research that was done in a Wuhan lab, that was dismissed as delusional and crazy. So I got to take a quick break because I'm going to come back and I'm going to play this Joe Rogan, and he just goes into complete beast mode, as I like to call it, and he just drops these truth bombs. And we'll play that clip here next on Conservative Cat Cities 92.9 The News and Talk Bloomington Normal. Hey folks, go ahead and smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Hunter lied on a federal gun form and was an addict at the time. If that was you or I, we'd be buried in the basement. Yeah. So like I'm saying, I don't want to give leeway to Hunter here, but Hunter, he was a bad guy. And prior to these charges and prior to lying on this federal gun form, he was doing prostitution, involved with crack cocaine, using illegal drugs. And those types of people in our current justice system are uplifted. They are given slaps on the wrist. They're told to go back out. And in some cases in Chicago, they're actually paid with taxpayer money via these criminal justice reform projects like the Peacekeeper Project or program. They're paid $200 a day to wear a vest and go play therapist, these convicted felons. Okay, so they'll go out there and they'll play a therapist and get paid taxpayer dollars, which is absolutely wild to me. Bad guys like Hunter in our current justice system, I'm not saying this is right, but I'm telling you that this is the way it is. Bad guys like Hunter typically are given slaps on the wrist. Because he is the president's son, he's actually held to a normal standard because of the media and because he's in the media and he's under a magnifying glass, right? He's being looked at. Now, you or I, if we are law-abiding citizens and we evaded taxes a little bit, or we lied or fudged a little bit on our federal gun form, okay, and we lied a little bit on it, okay, we would be held to the highest, fullest extent of the law if we have no priors, if we have, families, if we, are not bad. Let's put it this way. If we vote Republican, and it's clear that we vote Republican and we love this country, but we screwed up and we lied a little bit on our federal gun form, or we screwed up and we evaded taxes, or accidentally, didn't pay our taxes, which happens to a lot of people, where they make a mistake on their taxes and, now I've committed a crime. If it was you or I, like law-abiding citizens, we would be held to the standard that Hunter Biden was held to. Being that he was not a law-abiding citizen prior to these charges, he was just a bad guy. He was a crack addict. He was, using illegal drugs. That is a crime, okay? And he was never held accountable. In fact, he bragged about it in a book that he wrote, that he was addicted to drugs, And now I know of people who are addicted to drugs, and they're always out. Okay, they're always out of prison. They are never held accountable. Now, if I were to be caught with illegal drugs and I'm a law-abiding citizen and I'm not addicted to it and I'm not a bad actor and, I just happen to get caught with it, whatever, I would probably be held to the highest or to the fullest extent of the law because I'm a law-abiding citizen. You see, this is the problem with our justice system. Democrats, typically people who are bad actors, I'm just going to be honest with you, Democrats tend to be morally corrupt people. Who is the guy that was a senator aide who was having gay sex in a Senate aide out of a job after a purported sex tape? Apparently, this should be a crime. This is a public nudity. He was using, the taxpayer dollars, to have a film of sex tape in a Senate hearing room. Okay. Democrats are always very, very typically morally corrupted in character. And they are never held to the fullest extent of the law. Hunter, say he wasn't President Joe Biden's son. Okay. Say he was not President Joe Biden's son. I could see him skirting the law because he's a bad actor. The justice system, the way it's currently set up, these bad actors, things like the Safety Act, help these people stay out of prison. And then it's crafted in such a way to where law-abiding citizens wind up spending years and years and years in prison. I think if you commit these crimes, law-abiding citizen or bad actor, you should be held to the fullest extent of the law. Okay? Me, Hunter Biden, crackhead, or bad actor, all of us should be held to the same law, the same standard. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. It is Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you tuning in. Now, Joe Rogan, he's got this clip out there. It's gone viral. It's really I think it's awesome. Because he just lays it out. The left demanded that you follow the science. Really what they meant by that was that you followed the political science. And they called you a conspiracy theorist for saying that COVID-19 came from a lab in China and it was gain-of-function research. And they said that you were a conspiracy theorist, okay? And then they demanded that you follow every single policy that mandated you to close up your business, to 6 feet social distance, all of that. Let's take a listen here to Joe Rogan. Here we go.
The House released a 500-page report on COVID-19 pandemic. Key findings: COVID-19 likely originated from a lab-related incident in Wuhan, China. Crazy. You get banned from YouTube for saying that. Banned. Okay, over $200 billion in relief funds lost to fraud.
Wow.
With criminals exploiting weak oversight. Prolonged lockdowns and arbitrary mandates caused severe harm, economic devastation, mental health crises, and historic learning loss, while lacking robust scientific support. Policies ignored natural immunity, pushing mandates that eroded trust and harmed public perception of science. Absolutely. WHO and CDC compromised by political interference, offering inconsistent, unscientific guidance that fueled public distrust and the key players included federal agencies, and Cuomo's administration actively obstructed oversight efforts and hid critical evidence.
All right. So, according to the Oversight Committee, COVID-19 most likely emerged from a laboratory in Wuhan, China, and the virus possesses a biological characteristic that is not found in nature. So, this is gain-of-function research, right? Fauci lied about this. People died. It's not just that they were wrong. It's that they went after people who were right. Okay, ivermectin. You weren't able to get ivermectin. Hydroxychloroquine. That was a known treatment to be helpful in treating the coronavirus. Ivermectin, an antiviral that was known to be helpful in treating the virus. And they went after people who were right, and they caused so much economic harm, to the masses that we're going to have to deal with for decades, because you put people, healthy people, on house arrest, okay? And this, of course, increased things like drug addiction, depression, and the left was beholden to this doctrine, the science, right, at the expense of truth and morality and actual science. Okay, they were beholden to this doctrine of political science. So, you know, I'm so glad that we could say that the political or that the conspiracy theorists were ultimately right. Let's take a listen to more of Joe Rogan.
Select subcommittee on coronavirus pandemic basically said all the conspiracy theorists were correct. Every single one of them. No repercussions, no retractions, no apology from Rachel Maddow. None of it.
Yeah, none of it. No retractions, no apologies, no nothing. All right. Well, that's going to wrap up the show. I do think so. What did we talk about this morning? LPGA. The Ladies Professional Golf Association, they're banning men, kind of. They're banning men who go through male puberty. If you don't go through male puberty, you're still allowed to compete with women. So, like I said, it's not really the greatest gender eligibility requirement change. They changed it. They updated their gender eligibility requirements to ban some men from playing in women's golf. But they bent the knee, and they're playing both sides here, because the men who go on puberty blockers at a young age, they're allowed to continue to compete against women, although those men do have still biological and physical advantages over women, and it's kind of ridiculous. I think it's just pathetic. How about this? Why don't we ban anyone with a Y chromosome from women's sports? Very simple. Just because you block your puberty does not make you a woman. Now, we also talked about migrants, how they're getting free furnished apartments, whereas Americans would have to pay $2,000 a month for those apartments in Maine, and they get free apartments for 2 years. We talked about so much here on Conservative Cat. Show is archived on YouTube. It's on Rumble, so go ahead and subscribe. We'll be back at it again tomorrow morning, bright and early, live at 6 a.m. You guys be blessed, and we'll talk again soon. Bye-bye.